You are source. Abide as source. That which makes awareness possible. That which makes these endless creations. Again, shout out to Amanda Rizzo. Thank you so much for the incredible Anatta I Am a Strange Loop art, music. That very kaleidoscopic nature. The very fractally nature of nothingness and infinity is what we are, and we are not sensitive enough to recognize it. We have atrophied our sensitivity via obsession with Maya, with our dreamed creation design, being intoxicated by seeking peace and happiness externally. And that is the nature of these realities. What do you identify as? Are you the tiny person, or are you the source of it all? As you think, so you are. Are you the person, or are you source? Very, very simply put, we're going to go through some super easy to understand breakdowns of the nature of reality, and especially spirituality, which is simply realignment to the one heart. That's all spirituality is the realignment to the one heart. You already are it, but you're intoxicated by your conditioning, which is then creating ego and distortions and malevolence and suffering. And spirituality is simply the realignment back to know yourself as the creator, know yourself as the source that makes awareness and realities possible. So that's why most spirituality teaches the very simple analogy as a first principle, which is that you are not the clouds that appear and disappear of thoughts and perceptions and emotions and beliefs and objects, but rather you're the sky of awareness in which the clouds appear and disappear. So you see, you're the screen, just like right now, as you're watching this video, and the clouds are like the modulations that come on the screen. You are the screen. Awareness is the screen. And the clouds, the modulations, appear and disappear. And when you create this juxtaposition, what you do is you enable yourself to become more subtle and more sensitive to what is the very formless nature of witnessing, of observation, of seeing. And then you become aware that that is God. When you stretch out the awareness beyond the person to the very impersonal, shared, eternal awareness, that is what is meant by God, the very one I, the very God self. Capital S. And so we became aware of awareness first, and then we became aware that awareness was shared, impersonal, eternal, that is God. And then we become aware that even awareness itself, or that very nature of God, the very first attribute of awareness itself, is simulated. You are that which simulates awareness, and then we illusory create an identity of a sense of I to be able to experience these realities that we create. So you are the source. You are that one infinite intelligence. You are the infinite creator. You are intelligent infinity. You are the very nothingness that gives rise to the very infinitude vortexing endlessly in its witnessing of infinite transience as these creation designs, as the very love, light, Leela, the divine plays that they are. So you are the source. You are definitely not the person. So undergo this process of neti. Not this, not that. I'm not the person. I'm not my name. I'm not my body. I'm not the mind and its thoughts and perceptions and sensations. Those are just clouds that appear in the sky of awareness. So again, the screen that gets modulated, just like you're watching right now. And then you become more and more subtly aware of the very formlessness of that very I amness, the very witnessing, the very observer, the very seeing itself. And then you become sensitive to it being impersonal, to it being shared, to it being eternal, to really abiding more and more as that one God self, as the great I am. And then you recognize that even that is simulated by source. Even that is the first attribute of source, of emptiness, of void, of shunya. So you are that which makes awareness. You are that which makes realities. Identify yourself as that. I am source. I am source. I am source. I am source. Let's say it 3 more times together. I am source. I am source. And now really feel it with your eyes closed. Feel it. I am source of awareness of all realities. I am source. I am that which gives rise to perception. I give rise to perception. I, source, give rise to perception. I, source, give rise to awareness. Become that which gives rise to perception and know yourself as that. That's when you know your true nature. That is what spirituality is. That is what yoga or union or mysticism is. It means becoming one. With what? With God, with the absolute. And you have to become more and more sensitive to recognize that God is that impersonal, shared, eternal awareness, and that you're not even that, but you are that which enables awareness. You are that which makes perception possible. You are that which makes God possible, the great I am possible. And it's very beautiful because the very logarithmic scale of the universe itself, when you put our solar system in the pupil position, and then you shoot out past the iris towards the very outer parts of that eye, at a logarithmic scale, you get this. Towards the very edgeless edge of the universe, the very logarithmic scale visual of the universe is itself an eye. It's so funny. These are our own hints to ourselves. I am going to blatantly hint to myself that via these illustrations, these very beautiful clues, that I am what makes perception possible. I am what makes awareness of this universe possible. I gave rise to awareness and to this universe for my own exploration. And this is another favorite, Alex Gray's net of being. Again, you are the source that gives rise to all of these costumes. These are all costumes. It is the same sense of I behind all of the costumes. Now, the costumes are unique and they are beautiful and they're, quote, individuated, and that's very beautiful and important, but you can't properly be the firework of a costume that you are in the world if you don't know your true nature as the source, because you will commit malevolence and suffering because you don't know your true nature as that giving rise to everything. So rather than being peace and happiness, which is your true nature, you are trying to extract peace and happiness from your relationships and substances and experiences. And that is the archetypal story of the parable of the prodigal son, where the sledgehammer comes in and whaps you enough times to where it forces you to turn inward and investigate the nature of awareness itself. And that's spirituality, that realignment with the one heart. So it's the same sense of I behind all these costumes, but you are what gives rise to the sense of I, and even the sense of I is an assumption. This is another way to visualize it. The sense of I is an assumption. It is the crown assumption. It is the crown intoxication, the crown illusion. Ask yourself the question repeatedly, what is I? What is I? I am that which gives birth to the illusory sense of I that witnesses infinite creation. I am that which gives birth to the illusory sense of I that witnesses infinite creation. As you think, so you are. You are not the person. You are that which gives birth to the illusory sense of I that witnesses infinite creation. Know yourself. You are source. You are the one infinite creator. You are intelligent infinity. You are the absolute. Okay. Everything is perception. You are its source. You are the source of perception. But the very source itself is no thing. It's unfindable, but it can be known. The very nature of your awareness itself is not something that you can pinpoint as an object. Rather, it is the very formless subject of the power to know or observation or witnessing. And then you turn even that into an object. And you transcend even that all-inclusive God awareness, because you are that which makes the perception possible. So you know yourself as the very unfindable no thing. The very crown assumption is your hallucination of the sense of self. Your very assumption that there is a sense of self is the biggest intoxicative hallucination. I am constantly bitch slapping myself into alignment. I use this entire reality to bitch slap all of these costumes repeatedly into alignment with know thyself. As the creator, as source, as intelligent infinity endlessly expressing itself. Consciousness is the background and needs to see itself, then transcend itself. You have to know the very screen itself. The screen that experiences the modulations, just like the sky that experiences the clouds arising and disappearing. So you need to know yourself as that very background awareness, consciousness, witnessing, observation, and really see yourself as that first. And then expand it outward to include all-inclusive awareness, the very great I am, that one God self, and transcend even that to become the source of what makes perception and witnessing possible. It's already one intelligence with no sense of I. We're just not sensitive enough to detect it. It's pretty simple. You've become identified with yourself as a person, and so you've lost all of your sensitivity to detect that awareness is formless, and I am that which makes the first attribute of awareness itself. That then has this very illusory appearance of having a sense of self and a sense of I, that then contracts even further into becoming identified with a name and a body and a career and relationships and all of your social media accounts and needing to prove yourself right online. You see how all of that creates suffering and malevolence because you don't know your true nature as the very bliss and peace and as that which creates the very nature of the bliss, peace, witnessing of infinite creation. So you literally think that other people are these separate entities and you're in some sort of physical world rather than knowing that you are the source of the first attribute of awareness, which is formless and residing as at least that first attribute of awareness, rather than residing as a physical creature in a physical world with a bunch of separate physical creatures. This is all one vortex of the very void to infinitude, endlessly undergoing a Leela, a divine play. But you don't know that. And so because of that, you create malevolence and suffering. So become sensitive enough to detect your true nature. It's constantly there, but you've become insensitive to it. There's been an atrophying of you knowing yourself as source. Most simply put, you've atrophied your true nature as source. Now you think you're a person, a very contracted form of identity. That is the very nature of reality, is the fact that you are deluded into your contraction of identity rather than knowing yourself as the source of awareness and the source of these realities. So everything becomes super trippy because you spend your whole life with this illusory sense of I, and then it dissolves. My very 28 years of life had this sense of I the entire time. And there was this constant nature of the sense of I and being a separate physical entity on a rock with a bunch of separate physical entities. And it's just spirituality is realigning to your true nature, to that one heart, and pop. It's so beautiful. It's a big pop yourself back 2 times. Pop once from the person into awareness, and then pop the second time from awareness, pop to the absolute, that which makes awareness, to the source of awareness, the source of perception itself. And then you as a Jedi can navigate all of these layers, all of these lenses without a problem. And help others, be in pure service to them, because now you know your true nature. So you go where self and no self meet. The very nature of avoiding void is where self and no self meet. They are inextricable. They are best friends. They are like glue. And that's exactly where the illusion happens of self, is right there. At that very last attribute, to transcend awareness towards the very nothingness of source of the absolute. So self is the crown assumption. And when you recognize that self is the crown assumption, this catalyzes emptiness, because you become more and more aware of how your sense of I, you've indoctrinated and deluded yourself into, and so you become more and more empty as the very source, as the very absolute. And then that dissolves the conditioning. You're no longer all of this baggage of your onion layers of identity. All these distortions and delusions and contractions. And so even those slowly dissolve all of that conditioning. And then that's what enables you to firework most optimally in pure love light service to others from roots that are pure. Because you know yourself as source. You have become sourceful. This very emptiness enables Rigpa, the very ground, knowledge of the ground of your true nature. So you've become a Gnostic being because you know yourself as the very source of awareness and reality. Versus being the BS layers of identity that then are part of that conditioning, which then, as you firework, creates suffering and malevolence because you don't know your true nature. So be free of identity, attachments, conditioning, psychology, point of view, ideas. And in doing so, this enables you to be hyper successful in pure service to others, shepherding the ignition of the global awakening, shepherding the planetary enlightenment that we all so desperately seek. It starts within. It starts with your identity. Are you a person? Are you awareness? Are you the absolute? Are you the source of awareness and of reality? And do you see how it's all one intelligence at play and how there is no sense of I? Do you see that? Because if you see that, if you know that, you can't commit malevolence. You can't commit suffering because you become the maximal shepherd. You no longer come from your conditioning, but you come from source. Boom. So we invent the self. That in itself is such a profound revelation that we invent the idea that there is a self. It's such a sticky, intoxicative hallucination. So we invent the very importance of us to use this first attribute to be able to witness and observe our infinite creation. So emptiness invents the self. It just is, and we call it self. This is the very one intelligence of void to infinity, endlessly vortexing, and we add this very cheeky, cunty source that makes it so that we are I rather than us being the source of I. So it's the very cheeky, cunty, illusory hallucination itself that we create in order for us to be able to observe and experience, to witness, to be aware, to have the power to know. 28 years self-inventing the lie of I. It's a very powerful statement. How many dozens of years have you self-invented the lie of I? And how can you blast past that to knowing your true nature as that very anatta, as that very no self, as that very one intelligence, void to infinity, endlessly vortexing? The very stillness and the very endless movement. Transcend, go beyond coming and going, go beyond birth and death, go beyond the unmanifested and the manifested. Keep going beyond, 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 beyond. And what you get to is you get to ineffable perfection. And that's it. We have to illusory intoxicate ourselves with I for individual to experience reality. They need this sense of I. So no self and illusory self have to be married as fuck for there to be a power to know / I am. That very nature of no self is so inextricable, such a hallucinated illusion, because we need it for the very power to know. Again, it's the very crown assumption is this very self, capital S, the one God self. We as intelligent infinity are genius for making this sticky, illusory sense of I. We as the one infinite creator are genius. A void simulates the sense of I. Your very nature as source simulates the sense of I in order for it to be able to witness infinite creation. It's unbelievably genius. We are that which is genius as source, designing the nature of the illusory intoxicative I to infinitely witness creation. Transcend even perception, God, what you simulate to know. So transcend even what you simulate as the attribute of perception of God to be able to know these creations. So our most illusory first principle is our most needed. So the very nature of the first attribute is self that is so illusory and intoxicative is our most needed. It's the most mission critical. It's the most paramount. We have to have the power to know. We have to have awareness. So we as source/creator have to use perpetual sticky first attribute to experience realities. We as source creator use this very perpetually sticky first attribute to experience realities, to witness, to observe this infinite creation. We use this very illusory, intoxicative sense of I. And so that's why we're so passionate about a navigable roadmap for awakening, because there are these very pop moments, as we described throughout the show, is as you think, so you are. You think you're a person, but awakening is realignment to the one intelligence. So you pop from being a person to being awareness, which is a big step. But then people think it ends there. It doesn't end there. You pop from being awareness to recognizing infinity. You recognize the very nature of the one God self being the infinite observer or the infinite witness, and then you recognize the very source void, emptiness, shunya, absolute, that is the unmanifested, that manifests the first attribute itself of awareness that enables you to have the power to know. So there are these pops that happen for you, and that this very last pop from the sense of self to the sense of no self, from the very Atman to the Anatman, to the very Anatta, the very no self, is mission critical for you to know. This is one massive, your nature as source, creating this one massive decentralized swarm intelligence, God's love light Leela that plays endlessly in its creations. And so we need this navigable roadmap. It's mission critical. So much of the planet is still stuck in this third density, matrixy governments and politicians and economic machinery and media propaganda and fast food, high fructose corn syrup, all of these nonsensical indoctrinated belief structures, and they have absolutely no will and no choice and no self-awareness and no sovereignty. But you have to recognize that you are that. I am that. I am all of those costumes. And for me to create the architectures that enable these costumes to awaken is the coolest thing that I could possibly do. Boom. So that's the nature. You are source. All right. That's all. Adore you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Would love for you to like the video if it brought you value. Helps the algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't yet to the channel. Leave a comment below with your thoughts about being source. Share the video with other people that you know this would resonate with. You are source. And we'll outro with some music as well. Again, thanks Amanda Rizzo. Again, it's Anatta, I Am a Strange Loop, and you can find it on the link in the bio below is down there. Go and check it out. Just tap in to the very knowledge. I am source. I am source. I am source. I am not my person identity. I am at least awareness. Even more, I am the source of awareness. I am source. I am source. I am source. All right, that's it. I am source. Abide. Spirituality is the realignment to knowing yourself as source, as the one infinite creator. Thank you.